Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Shawning. Today we're going to be taking a trip to Amityville to talk about 2005's The Amityville Horror, featuring everyone's favorite anti-hero, Ryan Reynolds, aka Deadpool. We're going to break it down into, I'm going to tell you the plot real quick, then we're going to talk about the characters, then we're going to talk about the scares and the atmosphere a little bit, and then just my overall view. So let's get started.
For the Lutz family,
It's beautiful.
it was the find of a lifetime.
Who are you talking to?
The girl who lives in my closet.
Until they discovered the house has a history
He killed his brothers in this very room.
they can't escape.
Hi, Lisa.
Get you and your family out of that house right now.
The Amityville Horror.
And like always, do not forget to like and subscribe. Also go follow my Instagram as well. Now let's move on to the fun part, which is where I start talking about scary movies. Right now we're talking about The Amityville Horror from 2005 featuring Ryan Reynolds. But first, let me just give you the plot of this movie really quick. This takes place 1 year after the events of the original Amityville Horror incident. It was a real case, as many of you already know, so it's based on a true story. This is not the original, this is not the DeFeo family. This takes place 1 year after those events. Family moves in, George, aka Ryan Reynolds, being like the new husband, and he's the stepdad. So there's George and Kathy. They move in with their two kids. They're Kathy's children, so George is the awkward stepdad. And they move into the Amityville house, and things, start hitting the fan pretty much immediately. George starts kind of losing his mind. I guess that's the person they decided to attach themselves to. And also, he was the one that went into the basement and started messing with everything. And that's where we saw the clock that said 3:15. And if you know anything about the Amityville movie, at 3:15 is, when Homeboy decided to go crazy and do his thing. The family's in this house. George is kind of losing his mind. And that's pretty much where you're at. Oh, and you also have the little girl. I forget about her sometimes because she just kind of pops out randomly in the movie. Grace Montoya, I believe. And she plays the little Kathy's youngest daughter. She's also friends with Jody. And Jody is the dead daughter from the original Amityville incident. There's just a lot of sporadic things happening as well. So you can just kind of understand that the house is just super powerful and super demonic. Lots of spirits everywhere. George is losing his mind as far as the plot goes. That's pretty much all you're dealing with. So let's just talk about the characters real quick. Not really a lot of characters here. You have George, played by Ryan Reynolds. He does an amazing job. And I know you don't normally associate Ryan Reynolds with horror unless you're talking about Voices, which is a super crazy movie that I do recommend and will probably talk about sometime on this channel. Even as the dad and the nice part of Ryan Reynolds in this is really nice. Because he's just a charming dude anyways. And then when he goes bonkers, he really goes bonkers. One of the coolest things they did with his character is when he does go crazy, they gave him contact lenses, and they're super creepy. And I think that was really effective personally. So I really thought that was a nice touch to his character. I get a lot of Jack Torrance vibes from George's character. So it's a familiar sight, but it also works. So I'm kind of glad they went with that, even down to his weapon of choice being an axe. Or it wasn't really an axe, it was more of a splitting maul. So there was a lot of similarities between the characters. Yeah, George did great. George's character was awesome. Ryan Reynolds nailed it. I think it was super effective, and he was super creepy. So I bought into it, and it fit for me. As far as Kathy, here's my thing. This stuff is happening immediately, and you're just not worried about it. It's okay. And that's the issue here. She just got too excited over there being this big house. And a bunch of people died in that house. Quit being selfish. You don't need a house that big. Do you know there's a catch? And they even told you, hey, 5 people just died here. It's my dream home. Okay. Then you get there. stuff hits the fan and you're gonna wait? Nah, I'd be out. Peace. Nope. She was fine. I mean, she had to be there, obviously, because it would have been awkward if there wasn't anyone there. There wasn't really anything special about her character. So, I mean, Kathy was okay. She was the lover of George, and, I mean, she kind of had to tie everything together, so, you know. Then there was the kids. I don't even remember their names, really. They were just there to add the extra tension between the whole stepdad situation. The spirits or whatever would manipulate things to make it look like that they were out to get him. They being the kids and him being George. So, you know, there was that other story kind of happening as well, which I guess fit and it helped add that extra tension to just kind of push George over the edge. So that was nice. As far as the other character would be Jody, the little dead girl. She was creepy. I don't know. It was just odd to have her there as well because there was no reason for her to still be like haunting the house and none of the other family members were. Like, it just, I don't know. It's odd to me and I just don't understand. Then you have the really annoying hot babysitter that got what she deserved. It was also a really gross scene though. I'm sorry. We're going to talk about that for a second. Jody grabs the babysitter's finger and puts it in the bullet wound hole on her forehead. Social distancing. That's nasty. Can you imagine reading your script and it just says, sticks finger in bullet hole wound? But now, let's just talk about the overall atmosphere and the scares of this movie and how effective they were or how effective they weren't in some cases. I think they did a phenomenal job at making the house feel alive. And you really get that sense of the house is very much its own character as well. As soon as the family moves in, the atmosphere changes. Go back and watch it, and I mean, you can see it for yourself. It's like the whole house, the atmosphere of the house completely changes once they move in. The hallways just they're dark and they have that blue tint and they're really narrow and they show those shots of the hallways, and I think that was super cool because that would, you know, give me anxiety if I went down like a bunch of hallways that were that narrow and blue. Another thing they did that I think was really, really effective is the visions that George was having. They were super creepy. So I definitely think that they were effective. They felt real at times and you didn't know they were a vision, so I thought that was very effective too. And there's several different ones, so it's kind of difficult to know what's a vision and what wasn't. So, you know, that was fun. There is one thing though that they kept doing that I really hated. They kept doing this weird CGI demon face over the faces, and it just looked really bad. I wasn't a fan of the CGI demon face. It wasn't scary, it just looks corny. Personally, this is all personal opinion, so just take it with a grain of salt, but I didn't buy into that. I want to talk about the house a little more though. It changes so much throughout the film. However, it's still just as powerful as it was a year ago, and I'm glad they did that. I'm glad it wasn't a super slow build like most haunted house movies are. I wouldn't necessarily consider it, well, yeah, it is a haunted house movie, I guess. But anyway, you have this haunted house, but it's right off the bat. I mean, things start hitting the fan, and I'm glad they did that because it truly shows how strong whatever these dark presences are in this house are. Because, I mean, these ghosts aren't gonna be like, hey, let's wait for them to get comfortable and then we'll start scaring them. That's not how that worked. They were like, nah, they're here. Let's mess them up. So I'm glad that there was not a slow build to this. I don't think it would have fit well. And I think that's part of the reason why people don't like the original as much, because it's really slow. The house part of this movie was fantastic. So I think it needs a little more praise because they did a phenomenal job just giving it that alive feel. As far as like the score goes, there's not really much of a score. I couldn't remember it, so there's nothing to really talk about in that department. The atmosphere is really, really where they got it. Just my general overview of this movie. It's a really good freaking movie, and you need to watch it. If you haven't, it's really sad for you, because Ryan Reynolds is awesome anyway. So I definitely recommend this movie. I recommend buying it, because you're not going to be let down by this movie. It is a super solid movie, especially for something that came out in 2005. And I would even argue that this may be one of the best horror movies to come out in the 2000s. I would be willing to make that argument with anyone. So that is just my thoughts on 2005's The Amityville Horror. It's a really good movie. It's a really scary movie. And I think that everyone would thoroughly enjoy it. If you don't enjoy it, let me know why. If you do enjoy it, also let me know why. Drop in the comments some movies you would like me to talk about, and I would love to. And yeah, that's just about it. So y'all keep it creepy, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.